This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. Good evening. Well, this is the first official day of summer, and it lived up to all expectations. 17 states registered temperatures over 100. At least 60 cities reported record high readings, including Baltimore at 101 degrees, Chicago also 101, and Bismarck, North Dakota, 103 degrees. Ironically, it was the normally hot state of Florida that escaped. It recorded temperatures only in the 80s. What this widespread heat wave means is something more than just talk about the weather. It is the stuff of serious scientific speculation. CBS News correspondent Susan Spencer has the first of our true reports on the heat, the drought, and what it may signify for the country.
The summer of '88 is a scorcher, but not a fluke. The 80s have brought us the 4 hottest years in the last 100, and don't look for quick relief.
It's highly likely, though, given what man has been doing really to tamper with the atmosphere, that we are going to be seeing a continuation of the same trend.
The big worry that man's tampering finally has brought the dreaded greenhouse effect, that the hot temperatures may be due to a buildup of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, caused by the burning of fossil fuel and by the shrinking of the world's forests. Result, a blanket over the planet that keeps in the heat.
We can't say the bell rang that proved once and for all it's a greenhouse effect, but it's what I think we really do need to expect more frequently as time goes on.
And climatologists warn that even if this current heat wave isn't greenhouse caused, the day is surely coming. We had better start planning. That means reforestation, shifting crops, and cutting down on fossil fuel.
The question really right now is not so much will it warm, the question is will it warm at such a pace that it will overwhelm our ability to respond.
Computerized models of what lies ahead are not comforting.
This current picture shows warming over the United States during summer in the 1990s. We've made projections out through the year 2060, and the temperature changes one gets at that point read like science fiction.
Many parts of the country will hit near 100 again tomorrow. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Washington.
The mercury topped 100 again today on the scorched fields of Wisconsin, deepening the drought and forcing farmers to feed their cows from winter reserves.
A lot of the dairy farmers are going to go broke and just simply liquidize their herds and sell them because they don't have the money to feed their herds.
In the nation's top dairy state, this year's milk production may be off by 1 billion gallons. One emergency program is allowing farmers to harvest hay from the land the government pays them not to use. Just back in Washington after a tour of the Midwest, the head of the Senate Agriculture Committee says more must be done to ease the farmers' $1.8 billion crop loss.
What I saw is not a disaster in the making. I saw a disaster now. And I saw something that's going to be, that is going to have a terrible effect not only in those states, but in all states.
Are you going to make hay out of that? Or?
Desperate farmers are calling hotlines looking for hay to feed their animals and tips to save their crops. The nation's vegetable canners are in trouble too. The pea crop is off by 50%, and without rain, a sweet corn shortage is almost a certainty.
What this area does here kind of dictates what the country's going to have for vegetables this year.
Tom Sayers' peas are almost dead, and the tobacco plants he planted just Sunday are quickly drying out.
The farmer never gives up, I don't think, but it don't look good.
For those who survived the farm crisis of the early 80s, a continued drought would be particularly cruel.
Farmers who were in a fragile situation may be forced out of business.
Even the farmers who irrigate are predicting 30 to 40% grain losses. Still, a little rain could make a big difference.
Some places they've prayed and got rain, but evidently we're not praying enough here.
Prayers were answered in a few places where there were scattered thunderstorms. But most farmers are willing to try anything in their desperation for rain. Gary Reeves, CBS News, Janesville, Wisconsin.
Consumer prices for the month of May were released today, and they did not reflect the effects of the drought. They were up only 0.3%, lower than the 2 previous months. The only area where the drought had any influence was in higher prices for vegetable oil and mayonnaise. As expected, the government reported today that the nation's savings and loan institutions lost a lot of money in the first 3 months of the year, nearly $4 billion. That is the second biggest loss ever, and 20 institutions, most of them in Texas, accounted for $3 billion of the total. There was a late jarring note today as the seven-nation economic summit in Toronto wound up. Canadian Prime Minister Mulroney said that Canada has expelled 17 Soviet diplomats on charges of industrial espionage. The economic summit itself ended with a communique that, to be sure, contained no breakthroughs, but the meeting over, President Reagan held a news conference and found himself barraged with questions about events in Washington. White House correspondent Bill Plant reports.
President Reagan finished his summit with a news conference that focused not on economics, but on the burgeoning scandal at the Pentagon. Mr. Reagan praised his administration for uncovering the scandal, but seemed to say that some corruption in the Pentagon is almost inevitable.
I think that it should be understandable how such things can happen in something as big as our government is.
The president also defended investigators' decision not to inform him or other top officials until the scandal became public.
I think the tip that came and the investigation that was started reflected that there wasn't anyone, up to and including me, that the investigators could feel free to inform of this. They had no idea where this leveled off or how far it went or how high it went.
Addressing another major scandal of his administration, the Iran-Contra affair, Mr. Reagan appeared to rule out pardons for Oliver North and John Poindexter.
Well, I have said already that while I don't think that those men were guilty of any law-breaking of any kind, but, of course, the case has to go forward.
Earlier, President Reagan and the other leaders ended their summit with a joint communique warmly congratulating themselves and glossing over their differences. An extra hour of polite wrangling in this morning's session failed to produce agreement on Mr. Reagan's proposal to eliminate government agricultural subsidies by the year 2000. Among the things on which they did agree, the need to offer debt relief to the poorest countries of Africa. Their plan allows creditor nations to choose from a variety of options, from forgiving those debts to simply stretching out payment. Specifics aside, this summit was also a chance for Western leaders to say farewell and thanks to Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan has been, for all of us at this table, a gracious friend and a trusted ally. We shall all miss his warmth and his wisdom.
And leaving his final summit session, Mr. Reagan couldn't resist replying to a query about who'll be in his place next year.
Mr. Reagan, do you think Mr. Dukakis is going to win the next election?
Over my live body.
That may be a hint from the president about his plans to campaign for George Bush. His advisors are looking for ways to keep Mr. Reagan in the limelight, because after this love fest at Toronto, coming back to a summer of scandal stories from the Pentagon is not their idea of how to spend the president's last few months in office. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the president in Toronto.
Several of the Pentagon employees implicated in the still-spreading defense contract fraud investigation were ordered reassigned today to other jobs, and at least one suspect in the scandal reportedly has agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. Pentagon correspondent David Martin now with that report.
6 Defense Department employees who are targets of the investigation into Pentagon bribery were suspended today from doing any work related to buying weapons or other equipment for the military. Defense Secretary Carlucci ordered them transferred to other jobs pending the outcome of the investigation.
Secretary Carlucci took this action in the interest of ensuring that the ongoing procurements of the department are free from question.
Carlucci has not yet decided what to do about the defense contractors and their consultants who also have been named as targets of the investigation. Disclosure forms filed by one of those consultants, former Assistant Secretary of the Navy Melvin Paisley, list McDonnell Douglas, the nation's largest defense contractor, and United Technologies as among his clients. The forms show Paisley didn't break any rules in setting up his business, but once he got started, he allegedly funneled insider information on the Navy's F-18 jet fighter to McDonnell Douglas. In a business where a single contract can be worth billions of dollars, investigators will have to sort out what is illegal from what is simply cutthroat competition for Pentagon dollars. Take the case of the chairman of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, Bill Chappell, who says he was only doing what every congressman does.
He wants to do everything he can to be sure that his constituent has a fair chance at the bidding process.
But that does not explain why Chappell forced the Army to spend $24 million on an artillery fire control system it didn't want, or the Navy to spend $30 million to outfit ships with anti-submarine equipment it didn't want. Neither product is manufactured in Chappell's district. This Army memo, disclosed by the publication Defense Week, says Chappell and his staff were, quote, closely allied with Lytton, which makes the fire control system. The job of tracking down illegal activity may have gotten a little easier now that one of the targets of the investigation reportedly has agreed to cooperate with the Justice Department. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, Ray Brady on the controversial move toward free trade between the United States and Canada, and David Browning on the world's most expensive pair of second-hand shoes.
61, 62, 63.
Independent laboratory testing proves that Sargent's new fast-acting flea and tick collars kill 3.5 times more fleas in the first 6 hours than the other leading collar.
I can't keep up.
And Sargent's new fast-acting collar keeps on killing fleas faster for a full 5 months.
Enough already.
So counters who count Sargent's fleas must work 3.5 times faster than counters for the competition.
4.
Sargent's new fast-acting collar.
I hope you're happy. I'm exhausted.
Honey, should we take the other car?
I'd rather not. Ford Escort now offers an attractive new design, plus fuel injection and a 660 powertrain warranty. In fact, the redesigned Ford Escort may make your other car seem considerably less attractive.
Honey, aren't we ever going to take the other car?
Nope. The world's best-selling car just keeps looking better all the time.
Now get a $500 cash bonus on 88.5 Ford Escorts.
Raisin Nut Bran tastes better than Kellogg's, better than Post. It's got juicy nut-covered raisins and big, crisp flakes.
People have a better time around Raisin Nut Bran.
The best tasting Raisin Bran. It's out there again, waiting. Allergy season. But allergies don't have to be a big problem. Not with fast-acting Benadryl, the most prescribed allergy medication ever.
The United States said today that it will not break diplomatic relations with Haiti and would not rule out working with the new military rulers. The ousted president said his civilian government may have been Haiti's last chance for democracy. Richard Roth has the latest now from Port-au-Prince.
Haiti's new military government didn't order business to resume today. It didn't have to. Politics didn't put people on the street. Economics did. Business is as usual, said a woman selling soap. I'm hungry. Buy something. Haiti is the poorest country in this part of the world, and the rapid return to commerce was simply a matter of survival.
La main régulière!
Barely 36 hours after military commander Henri Namfi went on Haitian TV saying the army will lead the country this way, public indifference was the only outward reaction. And except for the disarray at the political headquarters of deposed President Leslie Manigat, there was little evidence the overthrow had been resisted. There are still no reliable reports of casualties from the Monday morning takeover of the presidential palace, though many Haitians are calling it a bloodless coup. The deposed president's mistake, Haitians were saying today, was a classic error in political judgment. He simply underestimated the solidarity of the military. Speaking to reporters this morning in Santo Domingo, where he's taking refuge, Manigat said he'd been deposed by a power-hungry general who may be mentally ill, but he said resistance would have only meant bloodshed.
I'm against any intervention, military intervention of foreigners in Haitian domestic affairs.
Manigat said he's still convinced civilian power can succeed in Haiti, but the country's biggest problem clearly remains what it was before the coup, long before. The problem is poverty. Most financial aid from Washington was suspended last year, with the U.S. demanding democratic reforms here. Still, a Haitian military man told an American today, "What we'll do now is hold out our hand to the West. And if we get nothing," he said, "we'll hold it out to the East." Richard Roth, CBS News, Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
Sandinista President Ortega today blasted George Shultz's planned trip this month to Central America as a fresh attempt to boost the Contra cause. Ortega said if the Secretary of State really cares about peace, he'll visit Nicaragua too, which is not on his schedule. Afghan rebels are believed to be tightening their siege of the key city of Kandahar. Soviet troops reportedly have left defense of the city to Afghan government soldiers and moved to positions at the airport. Meantime, the much-publicized Soviet withdrawal, apparently, is running into some major difficulties, as Tom Fenton in London reports.
The Soviet pullout is not going as smoothly as these Moscow TV pictures would have you believe. According to their commander, the Soviet troops completed the first month of their withdrawal without losses. But diplomatic and intelligence sources believe they may soon be forced to delay their retreat. While these troops leave, Western sources say others are being rushed back to reinforce besieged Afghan army strongpoints. For 14 days, Afghan rebels hammered a government fort at Kalat in southeast Afghanistan until it fell. The defeated garrison left behind armored personnel carriers and fuel to use them, in addition to ammunition that the rebels at once put to use. Attacks on this and other strong points are being stepped up as the rebels pour in from Pakistan. They're harassing the departing Soviets and closing off the main lines of communication to the Afghan capital. The U.S. ambassador to Pakistan says the rebels should not be criticized for refusing to give the Soviets safe passage out of the country.
Afghan people have been waiting 10 years for freedom. I don't think we or anyone else in a position to tell them, well, it's going a little bit too fast. You shouldn't be getting your freedom back as quickly as you are.
But the rebels are heartened by the ease with which they have taken over large areas of the country in the last month. The capture of Kalat was significant. It cut the main highway between the capital and the second largest Afghan city of Kandahar. Now, Kandahar itself is in danger of falling. Soviet leader Gorbachev has threatened retaliation if Pakistan continues to aid the rebels, but a rebel victory now seems closer than ever. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
Anne McKenzie, interior decorator for Endust.
Does your furniture have wax buildup? Well, using spray wax too often can cause wax to build up and trap dirt. Use it only occasionally to polish. For day-to-day cleaning, use Endust. It has no wax buildup. Look, after cleaning your best with spray wax, spray Endust. If your cloth gets dirty, you've got wax buildup. So use spray wax only for occasional waxing. Use Endust for day-to-day cleaning.
Post Fruit and Fiber presents new Cinnamon Apple Crisp, and a Fruit and Fiber cereal fanatic who never forgets our name.
Right, never. Hey, this is new. Chunks of really crisp apple, cinnamon, it's fruit and...
Post Fruit and Fiber cereal introduces Cinnamon Apple Crisp with crisp, delicious apples, cinnamon, and high-fiber flakes.
Well, no wonder I forgot. This new taste is terrific.
New Cinnamon Apple Crisp Fruit and Fiber. Tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
Dedication, attention to detail, and caring. At Realty World, it's not just the quality of the material our jackets are made of, but the quality of the people who wear them.
Across this country for ice cream fun, America's favorite is 31. Baskin Robbins, sweet, sweet. Baskin Robbins, what a treat. Oh, Baskin Robbins, you're America's ice cream treat.
Another important step at Cape Canaveral today toward getting the U.S. Space Shuttle program off the ground again. Shuttle Discovery was rolled out of its hangar and towed to the vehicle assembly building where the rocket boosters and the external fuel tank will be attached. The first shuttle launch since the Challenger exploded is now planned for late August or early September. In addition to touching on ways to help poorer countries and the sticky issue of farm subsidies, a final communique of the Economic Summit praised many of President Reagan's free trade ideas, singled out the recent agreement between the United States and Canada. And CBS News business correspondent Ray Brady in Toronto has more on that.
What they hope to do someday at these economic summits is what the United States and Canada want to do early next year. Start dropping all trade barriers between the two countries. Most American businessmen are delighted at the prospect.
With Canadian tariffs being on the average double what U.S. tariffs are, going down to zero is going to be that much better for us.
The peace bridge between the two nations dramatizes the statistics. These already are the world's two biggest trading partners. $156 billion a year in goods and services move between them. An agreement already signed by President Reagan and Prime Minister Mulroney would increase that trade. But it must be approved both by Congress and Canada's Parliament. and opponents who say the whole thing was written too hastily are making last-ditch efforts to change it. In Wyoming's Shirley Basin, in this giant uranium mine, they're bitter, saying the trade bill will enable cheap Canadian uranium to wipe out a small but key American industry producing an important energy source.
We feel like we were traded off for cranberries or videotapes or something, and as a bargaining chip, and no one consulted us, and we were hit by surprise, and that's not fair.
We're going to become totally dependent again on, for one of our principal energy sources, on foreign countries without anything here at home.
But in Canada's beautiful wine country, they're complaining too. The small vineyards here will be put out of business, drowned in the flood from the giant U.S. companies which will be able to ship their wine with no tariff on it. Alvin Danieluk is a second-generation grape grower.
The deal signed between Mr. Reagan and Mr. Mulrooney is really a gun that went off, and it shot the grape grower, Ontario grape grower, in the head. And I always figured that my kids would take over, but right now you can't see any future.
Cheaper American goods will pour into Canada, but some politicians here feel the country's conservative government has made a giant error. The trade bill, they argue, will enrich the United States at the expense of Canada.
We are in the course of making judgments now about the future of our nation that only history will be able to comment intelligently upon. I think we're making a mistake of historical proportions.
Despite the controversy over the bill, proponents of free trade have a solid argument for it. It could, they estimate, create as many as 750,000 new jobs in the U.S. alone. Ray Brady, CBS News, Toronto.
The Consumer Product Safety Commission's annual warning about 4th of July fireworks had the tourists flinching today at the Washington Monument. For show and tell, the federal safety officials used raw turkeys to demonstrate the dangers of fireworks. If that wasn't enough, they followed up with watermelons and dolls. The Safety Commission says about 9,000 people needed hospital treatment for fireworks injuries last year.
I've heard some people say that all pain relievers are the same. Well, that's just not true. In the hospital after a boating accident, my doctor set me straight. He gave me Tylenol. It stopped the pain without irritating my stomach like aspirin or even ibuprofen can. With so many pain relievers today, some people might have trouble deciding. But I know what to trust. Tylenol. Because they're not all the same.
Trust Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
I took Metamucil, but it was so gritty.
That's why we made Citracel. Look, Metamucil's gritty, so it won't all go through the strainer. Citracel's special fiber pours right through. Citracel, great taste, no grit.
How can you help your home sell faster? Protect the major appliances. If your real estate company can't do that, then you're not listed with the right real estate company. Because you're not listed with an ERA broker.
If you heard the report on 59 cold cereals by a leading consumer magazine, you'd fall through the floor.
Mine's high in calcium.
And salt.
Salt?
High in fiber.
And sugar.
Sugar?
Lots of protein.
And added fat.
Fat?
Nabisco shredded wheat was rated tops in nutrition. For no added sugar or salt, low fat, plenty of fiber and protein. Nabisco shredded wheat. Nobody else.
Nabisco.
They sold a pair of old shoes at auction in New York City today for more than $150,000. They aren't just any old shoes, though. They're the ruby slippers made for the classic movie The Wizard of Oz, and for some collectors, they're priceless. The story on the fabled shoes now from David Brown.
The ruby slippers, what have you done with them? Give them back to me or I'll... It's too late. There they are, and there they'll stay.
As the Wicked Witch of the West found out, getting your hands on a pair of ruby slippers isn't easy. But for the collector of Hollywood memorabilia, it's not impossible either. That's because 50 years ago this summer, the MGM Wardrobe Department was making ruby slippers faster than you can say, there's no place like home.
She was going to be dancing in them, and, you know, they didn't know whether the sequence would stay on or what exactly would happen through wear. So just to be safe, they probably made 5 or 6 pairs.
We know of 4 pairs that have survived, rescued from the studio junk pile some years back. This pair at the Smithsonian in Washington, an anonymous gift.
2,600.
There's a second pair auctioned off 7 years ago, snapped up by an anonymous California buyer.
12,680, California.
There's a third pair owned by Hollywood history buff Michael Shaw.
So I have to keep the shoes in a bank vault.
Shaw also has the Maltese Falcon and the portrait of Laura, but the shoes are his biggest triumph.
The reason why the ruby slippers were lined in felt is because the yellow brick road was made out of plywood, and leather would have scratched the yellow brick road.
And there is a fourth pair, the ones auctioned off today, owned by Roberta Bauman of Memphis, who won them in a fan magazine contest when she was 16 years old.
I just feel like that now's the time to let someone else enjoy them.
20,000, 22, 24.
But as the auction proceeded, it became very clear that bidding would go somewhere over the rainbow.
145. It's only money.
The shoes finally went for $150,000 plus $15,000 commission, a record for movie memorabilia. Pay no attention to that man behind the newspaper. He's the bidder who didn't want to be identified.
People really, honestly, whether they'll admit it or not, feel like these shoes have some good magic, something inside them that's more than just a pair of shoes.
It may be years before another pair of ruby slippers is available for sale. As today's auction made clear, if you want them, you'll need courage, heart, brains, and major money. David Browning, CBS News, Hollywood.
There's no place like home.
That's the news. Bob Schieffer sitting in for Dan Rather. Good night.
To stack up the Total's vitamin nutrition, it takes almost 3 bowls of Special K.
I'll have shredded wheat.
12 bowls.
Separate checks, please.
Total has 100% of 9 vitamins and iron and is rich in calcium. That's a stack of nutrition.
In just 1 bowl.
All the stars were there that night. My assignment, sneak some photos. I was packing my automatic, the Canon Sure Shot Supreme. She threw me a smile. He threw me his dinner. He missed his shot, but I got mine. Close-up shots, low-light shots. Thanks to my Sure Shot, I got every shot I wanted. And one I didn't want. The Canon Sure Shot Supreme.
Buy any Canon camera, get over $500 in travel savings, and you could win a 1988 Mercury Sable.
Now for indigestion, gas, introducing new Extra Strength Malox Plus. It neutralizes more than any leading antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as new Extra Strength Malox Plus.
When you buy Corning prescription lenses that change, it's like getting free light tints, free medium tints, dark tints, and a range of free sunglasses all in one. Corning lenses that change, the only eyeglasses you'll ever need.
If I don't get a good start in the morning, I might feel peaked. I hate that.
Wheaties, 100% whole wheat, naturally low in sugar. That's champion nutrition.
What the big boys eat.
I'm Harry Smith. Tomorrow we'll talk with Kitty Dukakis about the Democratic Convention and her husband's run for the presidency. Tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Coming up on Eyewitness News, the search is on for a convicted murderer who escaped from the main prison in Nashville this afternoon.
Murray, Ohio said nay to the Swedes, but now